Yeah, so welcome everyone. Hi, computer people. Welcome this morning. We're excited to have Jude and Josh here to talk to us, but we'll tell you a little bit more about that. First, we're going to start out like we always do, just kind of go around the room. If you can introduce yourself, say what business you're with, if you have any updates to share or exciting news or anything like that. It's a good time to say it, so that's great. I'll start. I'm Kirsten. I'm the Communications Events Manager here at the District Association. So you've probably seen my name on newsletters and different things like that. Unfortunately, Diana wasn't able to be here this morning. She may slip in as we go along, so I'm sort of taking over for the day. There we go. So Alyssa, do you want to get us started? We'll just go around the table.
Sure. So I'm Melissa. I'm the office manager for the River District Association. We'll let you guys to be here today. I'm Cheryl Sutherland. I own Main Street Art Collective over by Miles Cakes.
I'm Diana McFarland. I'm with the Chatham Star Tribune.
My name is Gabriella, and we just opened up our salon, Bliss Hair Nail Studio on Main Street.
Emily Hudson, Meesburg.
Adam Broad, the B Hotel.
I'm Maddie. I'm the general manager at the B Hotel.
Taylor, and I'm her intern at the B Hotel.
I'm Will Mackaman, Programs and Services Manager at the River District Association.
Good morning, my name is Jeff Bond. I'm with Solex Architecture.
Hi, I'm Jude Swanson. I'm the director at House.
Right, I'll just call out Zoom people by name. So why don't we start real quick with you, Josh? We'll hear more about you in a second.
Yeah, Josh Hearne. I'm a senior program officer at the Danville Regional Foundation.
Maggie, you're next on our screen.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maggie Richardson. I'm the regional coordinator for the Health Collaborative.
Austin.
Hey, Austin. I'm the business manager at Ballard Brewing.
Kelly, you're up next.
Hey, I'm Kelly Watt, and I'm the outreach and membership coordinator for the Dan River Nonprofit Network.
Let's see, who's there? Ken, are you there?
Yeah, Ken Gilly, Director of Community Development, City of Danville.
Welcome. And then Tamika.
Hello, I'm Tamika Coles, and I'm a community health worker at PASS.
And then Kathy Gore.
Good morning. I'm Kathy Gore, the new President and CEO of the United Way.
Great, welcome. Anjanette.
Good morning. I'm Anjanette Farmer. I'm the AX Center Director at PASS, and we also have a team of community health workers.
And then Evelyn.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Evelyn Riley. I'm the Executive Director of the Dan River Nonprofit Network.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Who are you?
Hi, Josh Lucia with Lucia Video and Smokestack Theater Company.
Awesome. Thank you. Great. Well, welcome. I think I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you, Will. You can start hearing from our guests, and I'll let you manage that from there. Go for it.
Yeah. So, first of all, thank you all for being here. We weren't sure how many folks would show up, but this is a pretty large meeting. This is one of our larger meetings. So I suppose that kind of shows that there's an interest in this topic. Again, our topic for the day is around panhandling and homelessness, which are fairly interconnected issues in our community, very complicated and complex issues. So really, before I turn it over to Jude and Josh, who are our guests for the day and going to have some great presentations on this topic, just want to kind of frame the issue as, again, something that is very complex. So we're not necessarily looking to move straight into action or solutions from this conversation. This is more, I think, an opportunity for all of us to learn and listen from our guest speakers today, hear their guidance on this issue, and then I think it's an opportunity for all of us to share our concerns or our thoughts or our comments or just provide feedback. So as a community, we can try and take a step forward on this issue. So definitely encourage some discussion after our presentations. And Very excited to hear from Jude and Josh, who are two people who I really respect and trust in this space. So without further ado, I think Jude will start with your presentation if you're all set up. And Jude Swanson is the director of the House of Hope. Did you start 1 year ago or?
Oh, no. 2 months.
2 months ago, okay. I'm in COVID time, I don't even know what year we're in some. So very new in the role, but have a lot of exciting things going on at the House of Hope. So we'll start with your presentation and then turn into Josh's presentation after that.
You want me to manage the slides?
I can click away.
Okay.
That's good. Hi, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. Thanks for the intro, Will. I know Josh, and I don't know how much guidance if we're guiding stars about this, because I hope you all are prepared for all the answers to your deepest questions about homelessness and panhandling. We'll find out. So yeah, a little about me. I just started at House of Hope a couple months ago as their new executive director, and we are in the midst of an expansion, which you may already know about, and if you don't, there's some information in front of you. It's a little about our shelter and a little about the expansion that's coming up. So yeah, I just wanted to take a little bit of time here today to talk to you about who we are, what we're trying to accomplish, and where we're going. So does everyone know where House of Hope is at? I got like half nods, so I'm going to say 50% yes. But this location that you see on the screen there is at 206 South Ridge Street. We're across from the old Biscuitville, or just up the street from Galileo High School, whichever landmark suits you better. So a little about our program. We are a 16-bed shelter that serves men, women, and children, and they are beds. When most folks think of a homeless shelter, I think what comes to mind is a bunch of cots in a warehouse, right? That's not quite what we are. They are bunk beds, and it's kind of common living space. We have 4 rooms. 2 are separate for women, 2 are separate for men. And then we have like a lounge area, but you'll see pictures of that in a second. So everyone gets their own bed and their own chest of drawers to keep their stuff. We try and make it feel like a home, like you have someplace that you're staying, not just a cot for the night. So our folks that stay at House of Hope, we refer to as our guests, and guests at House of Hope stay for up to 30 days with extensions possible for another 30. That is relevant because as merchants, you may run into the occasional person on the street that seems like they are struggling with housing situations. And you can say, well, you should try House of Hope. They might ask you a question about it. Now you have an answer. So we offer food, obviously, shelter, obviously, and also support services. Homelessness is a complicated issue and requires more than just a roof and some food to remedy. It will, and Josh will definitely be able to speak more on this, but it requires a connective network of problem-solving people and people that care. Yeah.
With the expansion, how will your program grow? How many additional beds will the expansion be?
We will, I'll talk about it in a minute. Okay. Yeah, it's in there. So this is what the shelter looks like on the inside. That's our little library over there, generously donated by the Danville Public Library. Got a little TV viewing space, a dining area, game shelf, and a computer that our guests can use to, look up the Danville transit system and find out how to get where they need to go on a very, very complicated bus system. So, why are we expanding? Because if you are even like remotely looking at what's going on in Danville right now, we kind of have a housing crisis. I had a professor friend of mine who, when they moved to Danville in 2014, and they were looking for a home, there were almost 1,000 houses on the market. Now their daughter got married and is looking for a home in Danville, and there were around 80 to 90. So there is not a lot of housing available, and I'm sure you all know that housing costs are skyrocketing. And in addition to those problems, COVID-19 era assistance programs, rent relief, eviction moratoriums, utility moratoriums on shut off stuff, all that's going away. In addition to funding and rent assistance, there's a lot of things that people have gotten used to over the past couple of years that are starting to phase out. However, things are also becoming more expensive. Everything from food to medical assistance across the board, right? And in addition to that, we also have a casino on the way, which we all know that casinos are massively helpful in the homelessness area, right? No, they're not. We will doubtless, it's a complicated issue when it comes to the incoming casino. There are going to be lots of positives, but also a lot of things that we are going to have to work around. And so it's just things that we're planning for in the future. Did you?
Yeah, someone texted and said the slides aren't advancing, so I was gonna quick.
Yeah.
Just reshare. Is that okay?
Go ahead.
Sorry.
There you go.
Let's try this. Hopefully this helps.
Can the Zoom people talk?
Yeah, Zoom people, how does the screen sharing look?
That worked. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Kirsten. So yeah, folks are finding it harder and harder to put a roof over their heads. And in response to that, House of Hope is expanding. And what that's going to look like is this. So we are currently a 16-bed shelter downstairs, and we're going to be increasing our capacity to 32 beds on the lower floor at Ridge Street. We're working closely with Jeff over at Solex and as well as Quality Construction to get that done. And if you drive by our location on Ridge Street, you'll probably see construction crews in and out of the building now as construction has started about a couple weeks ago, and we are super excited to get this going. And it will look to be completed probably in November. So that's the downstairs, which is basically just going to be increasing its current capacity from 16 to 32 beds. Upstairs is going to be a special place. That is going to be Norma's place. Is anyone familiar with Norma Brower, who she was? Yeah, so Norma was a pillar of the Danville community. And she put her heart and soul into caring for the less fortunate and to just being an active member of the community. And she was on House of Hope's board. She passed away, and she was the one who really kind of was working on getting this expansion started. So it's being named in her honor. This expansion will be off of Patton Street. It is in our same building. So it's two separate locations. And it is going to be a 16-bed shelter that will serve women and children experiencing homelessness. It'll have a kitchenette, a little common area, and a play area, obviously for the kids. So this is the heart and soul of our expansion, and we're really looking forward to this because women and children experiencing homelessness is an increasing demographic as far as I've seen just in the past couple months. In our current shelter, we've been full for the past 3 weeks, but I still get phone calls. I get phone calls from, someone calling and saying, "Hi, do you have space for a mom and her kid?" And I'm like, "Are you referring to someone?" And they say, "No, it's me. I'm looking for a spot for myself and my 12-year-old daughter." And then I have to tell them that we don't have any beds available. That being said, I don't then just hang up the phone. We try and figure out something for them to go to for that night, call social services, what have you. But the point is that phone call happens more often than I would like it to. So this expansion can't get here soon enough. So this is going to be the layout of Norma's place. This is Patton Street right here. And if you go in through that double door entry, you can kind of see what it's going to look like. These blueprints are also in our main office on Ridge Street. So you're welcome to come by, and I will be happy to give anyone a tour of what it looks like and what it's going to look like. So before we get into a bit of Danville stuff and kind of what I think we're all really gathered here for, Jeff asked a good question about Norma's Place and kind of the support services we're going to offer. So Josh with Grace and Maine has and he'll be able to talk more about it. But as I've said, giving food and shelter is not a solution to finding someone housing, right? It is good and it's needed, but it's going to take more than that, because with housing insecurity comes a lot of complicated issues. Everything from systemic racism to mental health issues. It is a complicated approach that is individualized for each person because everyone's story is different. So the key to that is we're going to be having a case manager who works with our guests individually and tries to find out what their needs are and connect them to supportive resources, everything from rental assistance to job finding to substance abuse counseling to mental health counseling, run the list of stuff. So it's going to be a big change for House of Hope in kind of our approach to how we are helping those who are experiencing homelessness. Does that answer your question? Okay. So around Danville, right? So panhandling. So I am semi-new to the panhandling discussion, so I don't actually know the legality of the whole thing, but I can tell you that I also live in Danville. And when I'm driving around and I see folks, we all know the one guy who's everywhere around Danville, and he's real friendly. But anyway, I don't see a lot of them in our shelter, right? That doesn't mean that they are not homeless. It means that, it can mean a complicated amount of things. It's an embarrassing thing to do, right? No one wants to be on the street corner all day asking for complete strangers for money. And most of the time, you being, an active citizen in that area are more a threat, I guess, to them than they are to you, because one phone call and they're in jail, and then now in a much worse situation than they were just in. So that's to say it is beneficial to be, so checking into your local homeless shelter where everyone knows that you're at and can approach you with, invasive questions, stuff like that may not be the way to go. So where do they live? I'm not sure. I probably haven't talked to as many of them as I should have. But yeah, and this is going to be probably back and forth between myself and Josh, as he's been in the housing insecurity arena longer than I have. So that's to say, our neighborhood is very important in Danville, and I understand that, when people come up and ask you for money, it's awkward, both for the shop owners, which the situation is happening outside of, or maybe even inside of your establishment. It's awkward for the people being asked, and it's awkward for the people doing the asking. So how can we benefit our neighborhood in this kind of conversation? That includes those folks asking, who are out there on the streets with their cardboard signs and walking up to you and asking for a bit of change. A bit of a realistic outlook about this. I mentioned all of the answers that we would have, and that is that there really isn't a secret to how to solve panhandling, right? And in addition to all those things that I talked about earlier that are contributing to the housing crisis, things are probably not going to get better soon unless if we continue to have these kinds of conversations and all work together and kind of pool our resources and find out what can happen. So a few things that you can do right now. One is to follow those people that are working in housing insecurity areas. That would be myself, that would be Josh, that would be Grace and Maine, that would be the Danville Redevelopment and Housing Authority. That is to say, kind of educate yourself on why folks are out there asking for money, right? It's not because they're lazy. It's not because they don't want to work. Step one is to not assume someone's story. Step two is to learn about the situation in general. So, be educated, I guess is what I can say. And you all are already doing that just by showing up here and showing interest in the issue. That's huge. And also be an advocate for affordable housing. And that's not to say that you don't have to be writing to senators and all that all the time, which is helpful, but it's just nice to have a voice that is empathetic and sympathetic to those that are experiencing housing insecurity. Okay, that's all I've got. I tried to run through that pretty quickly. I don't know how well I did. Do I have any questions for me?
We can start with a couple questions and then we'll go into Josh and maybe have a full discussion, but if folks have a couple.
I don't know if it's a question as much as it is a comment, because you said something about making a call and getting the panhandlers put away. That's not the case. I am in constant contact with the police all the time about the gentleman that you're talking about. Now, if he comes in my shop or on my porch and asks somebody for money, then I can call and they will pick him up. But the many times I witness him a day talking to people on my block, they won't do anything. The person that he's asking has to make the call or has to be willing to press charges. And that won't happen because nobody wants to go to that extent. And I am told by the police, he is not a homeless person. They know where he lives, and he actually recently stole a purse from somebody and is facing charges to get ready to go to jail. So there are homeless, I understand that. And then there are people who do not fall into that category and are very obnoxious and rude. And I have customers who come in and complain about it. So it's two different, there's apples and oranges. I just want to be sure that you are not naive in the fact that it's not always.
Oh yeah, no, I get it. It's just that it's hard to tell at first glance who's an apple and who's an orange.
Well, he lets it be known because if I tell him, you can come in and I'll make you a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and give you water. No, he wants money.
Yeah.
So I have it's very hard for me to have any empathy for that, because if you truly want money for food, you will take food. So.
Panhandling is illegal in Danville.
It is. Okay.
You can't call the cops and they will come and deal with that.
But I deal with them, they'll just ask them to move down the street. They will not arrest them.
They'll be back the
Take
next
them away.
It depends on the situation, because I have had to call a few times for people and they have arrested them or taken them to the mental health for evaluation.
Well, let's go ahead and move on to Josh. Yeah. And then perhaps once we get that point of view,
we can circle back.
I can circle back.
I appreciate people voicing their consent. So, Josh, we're getting it set up on our end. If you're good to go, no PowerPoint needed. Sorry again for that form there, but we're just about ready to start with your presentation.
All right.
Well, just give us 1 second.
I think you're good to go. Yep.
Okay.
Oh, I just,
1 second. We're
I
waiting on
stopped the screen share. What is going on? Zoom? Let me, sorry about this, guys.
Try closing the PowerPoint. I think the PowerPoint is just up.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Guys are smarter than me. There we go.
All right. We're set. Thanks, Josh.
All right. Thank you for having me. And I am always excited to let Jude go first because he does all the hard work. And then I get to come along at the end and say, hi, everybody, what Jude said. So yes, my name is Josh Hearne. I am a senior program officer with the Danville Regional Foundation at DRF. My areas of focus are grassroots community development, community engagement, and housing. So if it's a housing related grant, it's probably going to end up on my desk at some point. I am pretty new to that role though. My wife and I moved to Danville in 2008 and have lived here ever since. In 2009, I became a part of a group, became a founding member of a group called Grace and Maine Fellowship, which you may have heard of, you may not have, but we have been working with and alongside people experiencing homelessness, poverty, addiction, hunger, and other injustices since 2009. Doing so in a what we consider a grassroots and asset-based way, meaning the focus on building community at the grassroots and building community with and among people experiencing all those things, and then involving them in solutions that directly affect them. So we sort of operate from the basic principle that when we talk about homelessness, we should, especially if we're talking about trying to solve parts of homelessness or make it rare and brief, then we need to have people in the room and on that decision-making team who have an experience of homelessness, right? Directly affected people should be involved in the solutions that directly affect them. That's the basic idea of asset-based community development, as well as sort of Grace and Maine's approach for the last going on 13 years. We're just shy of 13 years now. And we've done a variety of things over the years. A lot of them have been sort of shelter, emergency shelter solutions, whether it's subsidizing rent or paying utility bills or helping people find a place to stay, or now we've moved into, we own some units around town. We have a handful of apartments and homes around town where we can put people up with very, very affordable rates, where we peg sort of their rent to sort of a sliding scale, or there's a, well, I won't get into the brass tacks here, but if you want to, I am just that kind of nerd. I'd love to talk about it with you. But we do that. We do a handful of, we also have, we have one of the city's bigger community gardens. Ken, I'm certain, remembers the time and all of the hard work that he had to put in to help make that happen several years ago. And but now we run that garden, as well as a tool library and a lot of other supports that are built around directly affected leadership on the things that directly affect them. So we operate those hospitality spaces and these extra houses and apartments because part of our leadership are people who have direct experience of homelessness and housing insecurity, are the ones who help guide us in that direction. Same thing with our gardens, same thing with our tool library. Been doing that now for almost 13 years, and just started with the foundation in June 1st, in fact. So you're looking at the new guy block over at the foundation. But I've worked with the foundation and in roles as a consultant in other ways for several years. I did also perhaps relevant is my doctoral studies. My final doctoral project included quite a bit of work looking at homelessness, especially around chronic homelessness. And so just real quick, in case you don't know the difference, we talk about two kinds of homelessness: acute homelessness or short-term, and then we talk about chronic or long-term homelessness, which are two at times remarkably different situations. And it is the case, you will find that sometimes people will lump panhandling in with homelessness, and there is certainly a sort of a high rate of what do we call that? I'm sorry, y'all, my brain is a little fuzzy. I was traveling yesterday. Co-occurrence, we'll call it. But it is not a one-to-one, of course. Not every, as y'all have already, yes, correlation. Thank you, Evelyn. Evelyn, once again, helping me do what I do. So yes, there's not a one-to-one correlation there. What you'll find as you homelessness and you study panhandling, is that it is just not quite that clear cut. But as you pointed out, obviously, that's not the case in Danville. There are people who panhandle who are not experiencing homelessness, and there are people who experience homelessness, many of whom, most of whom, do not panhandle. And so over the years, over more than a decade of doing this, I've been asked the question about panhandling a lot. And so it's tricky, in part because that is, I can talk to you all day about homelessness. I know remarkably little about what it is to be a panhandler. I've never been a panhandler. I've been a professional fundraiser, but there is a difference there, depending on who you ask, I suppose. But there is some correlation there. And so a handful of things to consider when we talk about panhandling that may be immediately relevant to you is that a lot of people experiencing homelessness also find panhandling to be irritating, and they also find it to be endangering. People experiencing homelessness, especially people experiencing chronic homelessness, panhandling makes them less safe as well. We know, I know personally people who have been sort of, who've received negative repercussions, who are not themselves panhandlers, but because of panhandling have received sort of harder interactions with people around the city. That is obviously unfortunate. And people experiencing, I should clarify that acute homelessness is when you experience one kind of homelessness. People oftentimes talk about how, like, well, if I missed a paycheck, then I might experience homelessness. Well, chances are you'd be experiencing acute or short-term homelessness, where you would be without shelter briefly before being able to reattain shelter because of the other kind of assets and resources you have at your disposal, right? Chronic homelessness is more complicated. In a place like Danville, chronic homelessness is more of an immediate concern than it is a very large concern, we'll say. So when we talk about panhandling, one of the things that I try to say over the years is saying no is always a fine answer. In fact, people ask me a lot, and I regularly say no. I do not often say yes to a panhandler. People expect me to say yes a lot. I don't. But beyond that, I will say that the experience of homelessness, or assuming the person who is panhandling is experiencing homelessness, the experience of homelessness has been described as everyone knows your problem, but nobody knows your name, which is generally true in our experience. So one of the best things that you can do is, if there is someone who is, hanging around a lot, is get to know them, right? If the relationship between you and them is adversarial, then there's not a lot of reason for them to work with you at any given moment. If you can build, and I'm not saying that you have to be like best friends and invite them over to the house, but the degree to which you can know them and build a relationship probably increases your chances of having a positive interaction substantially. And also it's a lot about setting boundaries, clear boundaries that are enforceable, right? Ultimately, we don't want to escalate those boundaries immediately. We don't want to escalate the impact to immediately just sort of calling the police, or whatever your best option is, whatever your biggest option is in the boundaries. But you do want to sort of be able to establish those boundaries. I would say that because I work around people experiencing homelessness, people expect me to be pretty soft-hearted. And the reality is, boundaries are my friend, boundaries are your friend. Establishing those boundaries and making them clear, right? Making them sort of crystal clear, and then enforcing those boundaries, expecting those boundaries to be respected, like we do with anybody. You have a boundary and you expect to be respected. And then that also helps, it increases the likelihood of a sort of a positive interaction. Long term, the best thing that we can do around homelessness and panhandling is to looking into some longer term solutions. That's really the big challenge, is that as Jude has said, that housing solutions are how we address homelessness. But beyond that, we also, we address it with community-based solutions, right? Building up community, connecting people experiencing homelessness to the resources and the people who can best help them. So part of it is sort of being a part of meaningful change. Part of my work at the foundation is working with organizations to talk about housing and talk about housing solutions across the gamut, not just people experiencing homelessness and housing insecurity, but people all across the spectrum, looking at housing solutions that make a substantial impact for everybody, because when everybody benefits, it does benefit people experiencing homelessness and people who might in fact be panhandling. I wish, like Jude, I wish that I had a silver bullet for you. I wish that I could tell you, here's how to do, and here's what you do and how to do it. But really, I think we all know there's really not a silver bullet solution. There are solutions. There are things that people do, that municipalities do, that organizations do. And I'm glad to discuss some of those in particular with you, either today or if you want to set up a phone call or a lunch or something, coffee, I don't know. We'll meet on a street somewhere, we can talk. I'd love to talk with you about what that looks like and how to do it well and how to do it better. I genuinely believe that a lot of this frustration, the tension, the irritation, it comes from the fact that people have a soft heart and they want to do something good and meaningful, and they don't want to hurt somebody's life. At the same time, they have a reasonable expectation of not being hassled or harassed or irritated. And so I believe that if you didn't care about this, then you wouldn't ask the question at all, and you wouldn't show up to listen to me and Jude talk at you. So I know that you care, and so now we talk about how can we do something good with that. But I'm sure you've already heard more than enough from me. If you have questions for me, or more importantly for Jude, then you should feel free to ask us.
Thank you so much, Josh, for all that information. So like Josh said, we're definitely want to open this up to conversation now, and anybody